Hi guys, it's Megan Smith with my interpretation of this week's readings and presentation. Keeping in mind the discussion prompt, what are the different levels of parent engagement and which were inspiring to me and why. So I wanted to start off with the presentation by Olivos and Ochoa and their different models of parent involvement. I thought it was very well organized and pretty cut and dry as far as the description of the different models. They started off with the models where parents were less involved, down to the models where parents were very involved. They started with the family influence model where the parents had almost no voice, and they were really just there to receive instruction from the schools, which I thought I think is a really ridiculous model. I myself would not want my children to be admitted to a school with that type of model in mind, because I think my voice is still very important as far as my children's academic environment goes. I liked the cooperative system model. I thought, it has a pretty decent balance of involving parents. It seems, as far as the description goes, to be very inviting of parent involvement and getting parents actively engaged in the schools. But I still didn't like that at the end of the day, the decision making was on the school and not on the parent. Personally, what I experienced with my kids and their daycare, not their school, was kind of a combination of the cooperative system model and the transformational education model. So my only concern with the last model is that the schools might be a little too dependent on the engagement of parents, and that they might not come up with a solution because not enough parents are actively engaged due to factors that we've already read, such as the first week where parents are working too much or they don't feel comfortable in a school environment and they're on in their fourth. So I kind of like a combination of the cooperative and the transformational, if that makes sense. I personally received that and in my children's daycare, and I liked that there was wiggle room as far as the curriculum went, and that at the end of the day my voice was heard and my concerns or my wants and needs were implemented to fit the needs of my children. So that kind of made the parent involvement just enough, as at least for me, to where I felt very comfortable with my children receiving education at a level of comfortability with them, and that it didn't so much affect the education or the care that other children were receiving as well, because there was still a little bit of a rigidness with the curriculum of the daycare. So that was my interpretation of the presentation. I thought it was very nice. I think the most inspiring model is Carl Grant and Aubrey Potter's constructive pluralism. So I really like particularly the definitions that they use on page 127 and 128. So they start off with defining constructive pluralism as a form of pluralism that pays particular attention to minority and marginalized groups in a society, and that it seeks, acts for, and needs their active participation. And on page 28, they observe that pluralism is the engagement and not the abdication of differences and particularities. So I really liked those definitions. I thought they were really great definitions because it seeks to go beyond just accepting diversity and really engages students and parents to work with each other despite their differences. So it goes beyond just accepting that diversity is there, and it seeks for different cultures to work together so that there is an understanding of each other's culture. I think that's very important, and I think it's really awesome that there is a model out there that seeks to incorporate this into academic environments, because I think it's very important in a working environment. So that was the most inspiring to me. And lastly, so I wanted to talk about Martha Montero Seaberth's reading. To be honest, I thought this reading was really dry, but what really stuck out to me was on page 167, I believe. She has a collection of different case studies, and one of them being from Irene Villanueva in 2005 and 2006. Her studies argue that family and cultural awareness research, as well as their incorporation in the curriculum, has challenged many of the stereotypes about Latinos' lack of interest and education of their children. So this reading, to me, what I took from it was that it's very important to incorporate culture into parent involvement, and teaching their children, and that by doing so, you really get an active participation from the parents, because they feel important. They feel that they're they understand each other, and that their kids their kids' cultures are being taken into consideration when it comes to their education. So she later explains on the same page with another study from Delgado Gaitan in 2004. Her research has demonstrated how Latino folk ways of doing things and Latino parents' critical reflections of their advice become critical social markers. She explains that physical resources, emotional climate, and interpersonal interactions all serve to support Latino parents in their socializing of children to education. So again, this really just stuck out to me because as students of different culture, it's obvious that that culture comes from the home, and that's very important in the home environment. So I think it's very important for schools to keep that in mind when it comes to getting parents involved and allowing the students the most academic success in an educational environment. So that really stuck out to me as well. So yeah, I'd really like to hear and to read what you guys took from this week's readings. Thought it was very informative. There were a lot of models out there, but like I said, the constructive pluralism was what really spoke out to me, and really just kind of a combination of the cooperative and the transformational education model. So so that's it. See you guys.